Welcome to this brief presentation on preparing a successful graduate portfolio. One important part of success is to ensure that you submit your portfolio on time. Check the deadlines for the semester you plan to submit your portfolio. The deadlines are listed in the guidelines for portfolios, which are distributed by the department in the fall semester each year. You can also find the deadline posted on the bulletin board outside the department office, or contact the chairperson or the department secretary. It's very important that you know the deadline because if you miss it, you will not be able to submit your portfolio until the next cycle. In other words, if you were planning to submit in the spring, you actually will not be able to submit until the summer deadline. So please find out what the deadline is and make sure you meet it. The elements of the portfolio include these things. A revised research paper, which I'll speak about in more detail in a bit. 2 additional research papers that you wrote for a class that you do not have to revise, you simply need to submit as a sort of writing sample. And finally, a statement of intellectual and scholarly development. So let me deal with each of these in a bit more detail. Let's start with the research paper that you need to revise. Nearly all of your classes in the graduate program will require a research or term paper. You should choose a paper that required research that's on a topic that interested you that you'd like to work on a bit more. So you're going to take a paper that you already wrote for class and received a grade on, and you're going to revise it further for the portfolio specifically. So choose something that you find interesting that you'd like to work on. Make an appointment with the professor for whom you wrote that paper originally for class. Explain that you plan to revise it for the portfolio and that you'd like to meet to make a revision plan. Connect with that professor electronically or in person and make a plan for substantive revision. As you're working on the revised research paper, again, begin by making a comprehensive plan about what needs to be done and what would constitute substantial revision in consultation with the faculty member for whom you wrote the paper originally. Make sure you make substantive revisions. This is not just a matter of fixing grammar or style or superficial changes. You need to add new sources and integrate them into the paper, or perhaps revise the thesis and revise the supporting arguments accordingly, or you could add some additional material here, some aspect of the topic you wrote about that you weren't able to include before, perhaps because of limits of word count. The idea here is that you are, just like faculty members do with our own research, you are taking things further, doing additional revision and enhancement of your writing. In addition to the substantive changes, you should also make sure that you make all stylistic and grammatical corrections. Ensure that you are following Chicago style correctly, and also make sure that the revised paper is at least 3,000 words in length. When possible, you should select a high-quality paper for your writing sample paper. So we're talking now about the 2 papers that you submit that you don't have to do anything with. You just submit the papers you wrote for class. If you have a number of high-quality papers to choose from, you might select one that was particularly significant for your intellectual growth and development so that you could write about it in your statement, which is the final element of the portfolio. Ensure that the paper is at least 3,000 words in length, excluding footnotes and bibliography, and that the paper was written in proper Chicago style. If you were admitted prior to 2019, it might be the case that you do not have a sufficient number of papers that are 3,000 words in length. If that is the case, please contact the chair about what to do in your situation. You should also have a conversation with your academic advisor about which papers you might include in the portfolio. The final element of the portfolio is the statement of intellectual development and growth. This is something that perhaps you haven't had to write before, or that many of us wouldn't even know exactly what that means. So I want to offer you some rather specific suggestions about how to write a good statement. You should try to synthesize what you learned over the course of your program. Consider a thematic approach, or consider ways in which you might draw connections among the various things you will discuss. The idea here with this statement is that you're looking back on what you learned over the course of your program, and you're articulating that in a way that is cohesive. Please do not offer simply a laundry list of what you learned in each of your classes. For example, 10 paragraphs for 10 different courses. That's not what we're looking for. We hope that you learn something in each class, but we would like you to focus on a few key moments of learning that were particularly important for you in your scholarly and intellectual development. You should discuss key readings that relate to the points of learning that you're talking about. Refer to the theologians that you read who facilitated your growth, and cite those sources. You should avoid focusing exclusively on lectures or things you learned in class from St. John's faculty. We're very happy that you learned a great deal from us, but we want you to be able to discuss key figures in the field and important theological documents and sources in your paper. You should choose a few important insights that you gained in the program and develop those insights in some detail. So again, rather than a long list of short and shallow points, we would prefer that you talk about 3, 4 things in more detail and depth. Your focus should be on your academic development rather than on your spiritual growth. These two things can go hand in hand, but in the context of this paper, we want to hear more about how you grew as a scholar and how you grew intellectually. The process should include writing a draft and sharing it with your academic advisor. Again, this is a paper that perhaps no one is accustomed to writing, and it's important to get feedback about whether you're on the right track and whether you're preparing a statement that will pass when submitted. So please consult with your academic advisor regularly, both before you begin writing, during the process, and make sure that they have a chance to read over your draft before it's submitted. As you write your statement, make sure that you include references to key readings, as I mentioned before. You can also include reference to additional sources that were not assigned for class. So perhaps you took a class in social ethics, for example, and it became an interest, and you read additional theologians on that topic after the class was over. That's a very good thing, and we would want you to include those sources as well. Make sure you provide citations in Chicago style and a bibliography in Chicago style. Make sure your statement is within the parameters of the assignment, that it's not shorter than 2,000 words and it's not longer than 4,000 words. Please write the word count at the end of your paper. You will submit your portfolio online. When you register for classes the semester you plan to submit your portfolio, you will register for a class, Theology 105, which is portfolio submission, or comprehensive portfolio will be the title. You will be enrolled in a Canvas course where you will submit your paper. Portfolios are graded electronically and they're graded anonymously. So please remove your name from all elements of the portfolio prior to submission. If you need to have some things scanned, please contact the department office for assistance. We have scanners available. It may take a few days to scan your materials though, so please do so well in advance. So you'll submit your portfolio via a submission link on the Theology 105 Canvas page when it's ready. Make sure you do so by the deadline. It usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks to receive the result of your portfolio submission. You'll receive either a grade of passing or not passing. If you do not pass, you'll have only one additional opportunity to resubmit and pass. Please be very careful not to submit or resubmit unless you're sure you will pass, because if you fail twice, your degree cannot be conferred. It's important to work closely with your academic advisor to ensure your success. We want to support you, and we can give you guidance as to whether you have prepared a strong portfolio or not.